Welcome to The Wandering Drew. I am Drew. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'd like to do a brief, at least I'm hoping to, recap of and review of my equipment that I used on the C&O Towpath Trail. And if you're unfamiliar with this trail, or you haven't watched my videos before, you can go back and look back in this series and you'll see where I discuss my planning for this trip and what the C&O Towpath is. But it doesn't matter really, because this is a standalone kind of video because it's a review of equipment. It has not, whether it's something on the trail or not, you can still watch and learn from other people reviewing their equipment, what worked and what didn't work for them on the trail. You can also go back and watch the video before I left where I go through each item. And in my videos, I usually just don't discuss, I'm taking, blank item with me and then move on to the next item. I usually discuss what I'm taking and why. What is my thought or my reasoning behind it? What is the reason that makes me think I need to bring this item? Whether this item is being selected over another item or just why it's making the trip in the first place. And I'm going to try to pretty much do that now as well. I don't want to go into the trail as much. I want to go into whether this item worked for me or not. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this video. I will be doing another video recapping my trip on the trail altogether. So I'm going to discuss the item, whether it worked or not, and if I was to go on this hike again, or going forward maybe in the future, where this item will stand and whether or not it makes it into my kit or not. First thing, let me say that I plan to carry most of my food that I would need for this trip. Originally, I planned about 12 days I would need to complete the trail using 15 miles per day as an average with one or two exceptions. So being that was my plan, I had originally about 11 days of food, and I thought I would probably eat out about 3 or 4 times in dinner around certain portions of the trail where you're close to a town. I thought I would go in and be able to grab a meal there so I wouldn't need as many. So I brought approximately 10 dinners. That added a lot to my weight. These meals are generally heavier than if you made your own, because you're not cooking them in a pot, you're cooking them in this pouch. This pouch is reusable and you can kind of clean it and save it, but generally it's all disposable. It's nice about it is you have nothing to clean up. You eat out of it and then you just toss this away. The problem with the C&O is that there are no garbage cans along the way unless you go into a town. So all your garbage has to be carried with you. So that's another thing to consider. Not a big deal because generally this empty bag weighs a lot less than the bag with the food in it. So you are getting lighter as you go along. So and I'm reading from my notes here so I get some numbers straight. So I basically, taking away from my anticipated weight, the water, the food, and the fuel in my pack, my weight was pretty good. I estimated I was around 30 to 31 pounds with food and water. 8.8 pounds of that was food to last me the 12 days. Most of it was snacks in the morning, breakfast and lunch, and snacks throughout the day. I don't stop to eat. I don't cook in the morning. If you've watched any of my other videos, you basically see I eat on the go. I eat as I walk. I don't plan on stopping to make food except for dinner. That's the only meal that I generally cook. So in my planning, I think I did pretty well, and I didn't come home with a lot of extra food. The only other weight that's not in there is my drink mixes. I used up almost all the drink mixes I had. I came home with very few. I definitely probably would have brought more. So a lesson to be learned there. Plan on bringing more than less, but it's a trade-off because you got to carry the weight. I also didn't eat out as much as expected. I only bought 3 meals on the trail. I'm also going to add in a breakfast that I had at Harper's Ferry, which I ate, but I ate all my snacks that day anyway because I had done a long day before and I did a long day that day. So in essence, I had 4 meals kind of out on the trail, but 3 of them in towns basically, or 4 if you want to count the breakfast. I also thought I would stop 1 or 2 more places that I did not. So looking back now, if I was to do this trail again or whatever, I still like the idea of a hot meal for dinner. I look at that as a treat for myself or my reward for all my hiking. But at the same time, I think that I'm just as fine going stoveless, and I would be fine eating snacks, and I would just change some of those up maybe to use a little different type of food. But I think I could just as easily go stoveless. And a matter of fact, if you look at it, I don't make coffee, I don't make tea, I don't make hot chocolate while I hike, so I can go without the stove altogether. During the colder weather, I think it's more important. I think it serves two functions. Psychologically, it boosts you. It helps warm you up eating warm food. You can always make, either tea or soup or hot water even to warm yourself up at night, or if you're really feeling cold. In an emergency, your stove can actually become a heat source or help you start a fire. So I think that makes it maybe a different possibility. But if I was to do this again, I think I could easily go stoveless, and I think I probably would, and drop even more weight. And if I did go stoveless, I would save the following weight. I carry the MSR Pocket Rocket 2 Deluxe, or Pocket Rocket 2. This weighs 11.5 ounces, 325 grams. I also carried a small MSR fuel canister. It's an 8-ounce canister, but with the canister, it weighs 13.1 ounces, or 374 grams. So for this trip, if I decided to go stoveless, which I think I would do if I was doing this again, would have saved me about 24.65 ounces, or just about 700 grams. That's 1.5 pounds of weight. That's pretty significant. But there are possibilities. So that being said, saving about 1.5 pounds of weight, 24.65 ounces, is pretty significant, and I think I would do that if I was to do this trail again. So if I was going to go, I think I'd leave the stove and the gas canister home, and that would have saved me some trouble. Obviously, not only the weight, but when I got to Washington, I needed to get to REI to get gas, because you can't travel with gas on a plane or a train. You're not allowed to bring it on, even if it's in checked baggage. So I had to make a separate trip and then walk across town another 3-4 miles that I decided to do, and visit things along the way. But it added to my preparations and my stress level. And I apologize, I have all my stuff thrown out about me. I got home late last night. I threw everything out here to kind of air out. It smells. I can still smell the trail. So I'm outdoors. Another reason why, you can see it's raining here today. So it's very good that it's under cover. Some of the stuff did get a little wet, like the tent, from blowing rain, but that's okay because it's made for that. And it needs to air out. My fleece, I brought it with me. I never wore it. I actually wore it on the plane going there because it was chilly. Other than that, I never wore it again. It was hot weather, humid weather, sticky weather. I didn't need this. I probably would bring it again. It's lightweight, it's not very heavy, but you need to be prepared. You never know when the weather conditions might change. The day I left, it was 57 or 58 degrees in the morning. So that's chilly enough that you might want something to warm up. If I was hiking, I wouldn't want this. But if I was just standing around a camp, I would definitely want something to keep warm. If you're not moving, you're probably chilly. I could have put my rain jacket on or something else like a windbreaker. So if I really want to drop weight, I'd leave this home. But most likely I would probably take with me. But I did regret having it because it took up space. It became a good pillow later on in the trip. I brought a spare set of clothes as well. And I wore these while I was in town or while washing my clothes. And I don't regret that decision. It doesn't weigh a lot, probably was 1 pound at the most. But I had an extra pair of socks, an extra pair of underwear, an extra shirt, and an extra pair of shorts. And I think that served me well because I did wear it while I was washing my clothes the 2 times that I did wash my clothes. And it helped me at least get some non-smelly clothes on while I was in town, so I wouldn't offend people at a restaurant or something like that. Other than that, if you're not going to plan on doing that, you don't need it. But I think you're going to want something to at least change into while you wash your clothes. So I don't regret bringing it, and I would bring it again. The other thing I took 2 battery packs similar to these. I had 2 of them. They weigh about 2 pounds total. This was exactly what I needed. For the first part to Harper's Ferry, I could have got away with 1. But on the second part, I basically used 1 totally, so it was dead. And the second one was down to 50% when I walked into town. If I would have stayed out the extra night to do 9 nights, I think it would have been down to 25%. And if I would have taken the 10 days, it probably would have been at 0. If I would have stayed out for the 12 days that I originally planned, I would have had to probably go into town somewhere and charge up during the day, found an outlet, and probably sit there for a couple of hours to let my stuff charge. And I didn't plan on doing that at all. There are people that do that. They go to, while walking along the way, they'll go into town, they'll grab something to eat while they're in a restaurant or eating, they'll charge their stuff at the same time. I just didn't do that. So I don't regret, while I would have been nice not to have to carry it, I think these served me well, and I would do the exact same thing if I was doing it again. I would take the 2 chargers. Because I use my phone, it has to be charged every day. I used it to edit videos, I used it to upload videos, I used it to take pictures and for navigation. My watch has to be charged every day. Anything about 9.5 hours of tracking, it goes low battery, and if you wait even longer, it'll stop tracking you because the battery is so low. So I needed to do that. I actually had to charge it on my last day while I walked, which used up the battery power. So I don't regret taking the 2 battery packs. I regret the wait, but it was necessary. The other item that I brought was my Osmo 4 gimbal. And let me get that here. And this is the Osmo 4 gimbal. I really used this the first day or 2 while walking along, while taking videos, and I used it every single night. Generally, I would video myself with it, so it came in handy that way. Just like on other tripods and stuff, I noticed I didn't use it as often as much. It was inconvenient, or it was a hassle to walk with it. I ended up holding it for the first 3 days. When I got to Harper's Ferry, I basically stuck it in the back of my pack. And after that, I really didn't take it out much, except for at night. While I was walking along, it was inaccessible. It was hard to get to because of the pack design. Maybe if I had a pocket or something that was easily reachable, but I'd rather have water. Also, because it was so humid, I was concerned about using it. And when the last day when it rained, I had it in a plastic bag for protection because I didn't want it to get wet and get damaged. So this weighs 1.1 pounds, 17.42 ounces, or 494 grams. I like the idea of it. I hate carrying it. I was annoyed. I would have said all along the later part of the hike, I would have left this home. There's no doubt in my mind I would have left it home. This trail is kind of flat. I think I got away with not using it a lot. But if it was a regular trail, I think up and down with elevation, I think it would become much more necessary to smooth out that video. I can't stand watching myself with that staccato video where it's all over the place. So that being said, I'm kind of on the fence. It lasted more than 1 day each charge. It runs about 11 hours. I don't record that much. So it probably could have gone 2-3 days. I did not recharge it the last 2-3 days at all because I wasn't using it much. And I wanted to save the battery power for other things. The phone being the biggest battery user. So I'm on the fence. I think your personal choice would have to prevail on whether you take it or not. I'd probably lean to taking it because it's better to have it than not have it. But it is an expensive item in terms of weight because it's 1.1 ounces. So that's that. I brought this little neck knife, which I never really used around my neck. I always carried it in my pack. It's skeletonized, so it's all hollow. I used it to cut stuff. I used it to cut K-teat mostly, which is another item I brought a lot of. I brought more than I needed, but I used almost all of it. I brought almost 3 rolls of it, little rolls that I had made, and I used about 2.5 of those. So that was another item. I would take this again. It's very, very light. It's not much of a big weight item. Let me go through some of my other items that I carried. I'm just randomly grabbing them and going through it. My duplex tent worked great. I enjoyed using it. I had no problem. It survived its first real rainstorm and thunderstorm expertly. I never had no problem. I did not have water blowing in. I set one side up a little bit high, so I did have a little mist coming in, and the humidity obviously was there. No condensation on any of the nights. Even though the humidity was very, very high, I kept all the flaps open when possible, except for the day it was raining. I kept 2 of them closed, and I left the other side open so the driving rain wouldn't come in. And I think it performed very well. So I'm very happy with it, and I'll continue to take it out. The only thing I did notice is that the carrying bag for it has a tear in it now from the trail, and I'm going to have to replace this. I don't know if I'll replace it with another one from Z-Packs. It has 2 little holes in it. I probably will replace it with the same bag because it is so light and it's good. The carbon fiber basically supports poles worked great. I love these things. They're extremely lightweight. They're less than a pound together and they work perfectly. So I would definitely recommend taking those. If I'm taking trekking poles, I won't bring them. But if I'm ever going on a trail where I'm not taking trekking poles, and this was one of those that is pretty relatively flat, I prefer to have my hands empty and not take them. And it actually reduces the weight because I don't have a pound plus of trekking poles. I would bring those carbon fiber poles again. And I am so glad that I bought them when I bought the tent, because I'd have to buy them separately. So that was a good thing. Speaking of Z-Packs, the other thing, my food bag obviously is made from Z-Packs. Performed excellently as well. I never hung my food. I slept with it every time. There was no problem with animals. Z-Packs luggage bag, I also used it as a liner while hiking, and it performed well. In the last day, it rained 16 hours straight. I hiked for probably about 6 to 7 of those hours in the rain, and I had no water inside my bag, inside the liner. I did have some water between the liner and the bag itself. So this went inside, but when I shipped it, and if you want to see how I use it, watch the video where I discuss my plans on equipment. So it's well worth it. So I would recommend that as well. The Z-Pack the Z-Pack Arc Blast backpack performed well as always. It was a little bit heavy in the beginning because it's rated about 25 pounds, and I was over that with my food and my water. I carried 1.5 liters of water, plus I had a Gatorade. I was probably just over 2 liters. You're talking about 4.5 pounds of weight probably additional. I started out, I was around 26, 27 pounds. With food and water, I was probably about 30, 31 maybe at times. With garbage, I didn't weigh it because I didn't have the ability. I bought the water once I got to Washington. As it went on, it went lighter. Did get a little dirty, a little sweaty, a little wet. Had no problem. The only problem I have is with the right strap, for some reason, continues to cut into my shoulder. The padding is a little less on this than in other backpacks because it's an effort to keep the weight down. You can buy a thicker cushion, and I may look into doing that. I probably would use this if I was going lighter again. And if I was to go again, I would try to definitely reduce my weight so I'd be closer to that 25-pound ideal weight. But other than that, this pack can easily perform in 30 pounds, in my opinion. I had no problem with it. It rides great. And as the pack gets lighter and lighter, obviously it becomes easier and easier. At the end of the trail, toward the end, probably after day 6, I was lifting the pack up with one arm and dragging it around. I had no problem with it. It was definitely under 25 pounds. So I don't think I had any problem with it. But that's when I did notice the cutting in. So that's something to worry about or be concerned if it affects you. But if it doesn't affect you, not everybody has that problem. It might be the way I'm carrying it. Maybe the weight my thing was loaded. I did have my GPS on that side. Maybe that was chafing me. I don't know. I put a bandage over it, and it's healing, and it was fine. So moving on. I took my Thermarest Neolite air mattress. I would probably bring something different this time. It seems to still deflate slowly. I'm going to have to stick it in the bathtub and find out if there's a leak or not. My other one I have, which is my X-Ped, I think is too heavy. I would have been sweating up a storm in that thing for the summer. So I probably would go with one of the other Thermarest products, like the Z-Lite or something like that. I think that would have been better and perfect. Would have been hot, but maybe with some airflow it would have been better. But other than that, it didn't do bad. As a matter of fact, I slept on this the last 3 nights without a sleeping bag. I used the sleeping bag at the end of one night, but most nights I just used this alone and slept on it. But it's sleeping on a plastic sheet, basically. And it was actually so hot that it was actually cooler than laying on the sleeping bag. So that brings me to the sleeping bag. So I brought my Sea to Summit Trek 1 sleeping bag. I regret bringing this. It was way too heavy. It was hot and sweaty. I did not use it most nights. It still smells like the trail. At best, I laid on top of it, but in the end, because of the material is so warm, I just sweated on top of it, and I felt like I was sleeping with a garbage bag around me. The most I would use is the foot box for my feet on a couple of nights when it got down into the 50s, in the first couple of nights. After that, I basically did not use this at all. So I would have not brought this if I could do this again. I regret bringing it. It was way too warm. I would bring a lighter bag, or actually a blanket probably would have done me just as good. and I probably would have slept better. That's why I said the nights were miserable for me. I hated the nighttime. If I could have slept, sitting up somewhere and then just started hiking again, I would have been happy doing that. It was just bad, and that sleeping bag did not help make matters because I really couldn't use it. So the first couple of nights where it was chilly, I used it as an extra cushion to lay on, but it's so efficient, actually. I guess it works so well that I was sweating, and I would have to keep flipping over, what I always call the rotisserie. My back would sweat if I was laying with it, so I'd have to flip over on one side. When I'm camping, it's like I'm on my left hip or my right hip, and all I do is keep going up and back all night long. I had very restless sleep. You get maybe hour or 2 hour cat naps, and then you're waking up because you're so hot and you flip over. And that's the problem with the sleeping bags. They're actually so good, I think, that they actually make it hard for me to sleep in that warmer weather. I brought the wrong bag, in my opinion. It's not the bag's fault, it's my fault. I think that knowing what I know now, and obviously temperatures being what they were, I would bring a much thinner bag, something made for the summer, 70-degree temperatures or more. And that would have worked a lot better for me. I'm just gonna reach over and grab some more stuff. Bringing all my items to me. I brought my Thermarest Cool Max liner, and this was what I actually slept in most days. Just putting this on alone was warm enough to keep me warm most nights, even on the colder nights. Between the tent blocking the wind or keeping some of the breeze out, or there being a lack of a breeze on the high humidity, and this is what I slept in most nights, and it was warm enough for me. So that's why I say a blanket alone would have probably been great. And I would have left this home and maybe just brought a little blanket, especially maybe like a wool blanket or something, would have been more than enough to keep me comfortable in my tent most nights. So this was a good buy and a good bring, and I would have left the sleeping bag home. The rain jacket, didn't really need it except for that one day when I was kind of glad I had it. It started raining really heavy. I thought it was going to peter out and dry out. I wasn't really sure of the weather, and it started raining harder and harder and harder. So I actually did put this on, and I wore it for a couple of hours, probably like 4 to 5 hours. I was damp and wet anyway, so I don't know if it made a difference. Most of the time when you wear something, you're sweating anyway, and it can't breathe enough to make the sweat go out so that you're dry. You know what I mean? You're still going to get wet in them. It's either you get wet from the rain or you get wet from your sweat. So it's really like a trade-off. But I did wear this to stop the rain from rolling down my back and getting my pants and everything wet. So I don't regret having it. It's super light. It doubles as a windbreaker, or if it was a really cold day, I probably would have brought this. So if I would have kept this and maybe left the fleece home, I would have dropped down another ½ pound. And I probably, if I was going to do it again, that's what I would do. I also brought rain pants in case it was like a driving rain, but I never used them. I should have left these home. Once again, a couple of ounces that I could have saved, maybe 6 ounces or so. I don't know what they weigh, 6 to 8 ounces. They're pretty light. So I would have left these home. I never put them on. The one day it was already raining, that I was already wet, and I just didn't want to stop and put them on, and they would have got all muddy trying to put them on. If I would have found a dry place probably to put them on, maybe a smart thing would have been to put them on, but nobody said I'm smart. I'm the first one to say I wasn't. So ideally, I should have left these home and I just hiked without them and got wet. So I guess if you're a person that would use them, bring them. But if not, I would say leave them home. If it's a rainier part of the year, you might want to bring them. But knowing what I know, if I was doing it again, I'd probably leave these home. It wouldn't bother. Let me see what else I have here. My headlamp, the same one I've used for years. I love it. Performed excellently. No problems, no regrets with it. And I would be bringing this again. Some first aid stuff I brought, which I do need to improve. I have here my some just tweezers and stuff like that. I brought some like tape and stuff just in case something rips. I definitely would have brought all that stuff. The potty kit I would have left home. I think it might be okay to have maybe a roll of toilet paper and maybe some hand sanitizer, but the trowel and everything else was not needed. Even the toilet paper, I never had a problem with it. There are numerous campsites along this trail. Even when they're not a campsite, there are parks along the way that have bathrooms. None of them were ever short of supplies. The only thing they don't have is like hand sanitizer or soap for you to wash your hands. But toilet paper was never a problem. You might want to carry some just in a case of emergency. You never know. You might be the lucky person that gets there after, someone used it all up, or they haven't resupplied it. but they were visited quite often. They have logs in there, the person logs down when they were there. And I know some of them were serviced like every day or every other day. So there was never a shortage of toilet paper on the trail. And I did have some Dr. Bronner soap, which I did use to wash up both me and my clothes on the trail. So that was a good take as well. But the potty kit, leave it home. Save your time and your weight. Here's some of the KT tape that I brought. This is the last roll I had. I had about 3 rolls this size and a little extra of the stuff I didn't like that was pre-cut. I used all that up. The pre-cut stuff I found very thin and did not do a good job. My TSA approved lock, this lock worked great, keeping my gear secure while I was traveling. My first aid kit, I didn't need most of the stuff. I did use a couple of the bandages. I did take some Tylenol while I was out there for pain. I was taking some other stuff. I don't use ibuprofen. And so other than that, it was good. I never took any Benadryl or anything else. I did use a couple of Band-Aids for some cuts I got, and for that chafing for my strap, I had a bandage covering my arm and the shoulder where the strap was rubbing, and that worked great after like day 5 or 6. Didn't have a problem because I was wearing that. It was raw, but it started healing, so that was a good move. Toothbrush, toothpaste, yes, you want to bring that, obviously. I bring diaper cream. Sometimes you get some chafing from walking, so I would still bring it. If I can get a smaller box or maybe package it in a smaller container, I would. I carried it. This is a 3-ounce bottle. I don't know what the bottle weighs itself. It's probably over 4 ounces. I would have left that home. And I took sunscreen, which I never really used. I didn't know if it was going to be open or closed out there, how much green tunnel there was. I was never really out in the open for any long exposed stretches until the very end. And then at that point, you really don't care and your day's almost over. So I would have left that home. That would have saved me probably another 3 to 4 ounces. So that's another thing. My Katadyn Be-Free filter, I used it only once. And the reason why is all the water there is treated with iodine, which gives it a taste, which is not good in my opinion. It does have a chemically taste, and for me, it irritates my throat. It's not harmful to you, but it just doesn't taste good. The powders help a little bit, but to me, that taste was still there. I could still taste it. So I know for some, they recommend filtering it, and when you filter it, it improves the taste a little bit. I did that once. However, I think my filter has some mildew in it or something, because the water tasted very bad to me with it. So I ended up pouring it out after drinking a little bit of it, and I just drank the water straight from the pumps, treated. So I'm going to retreat all my stuff and clean it with some bleach solution, but I'm going to order a new filter and just replace it. They're $25. I've had this thing for at least a year and a half, so I figured, you know what, let me just get a new filter. It's time to go. What I did in my case was about a week or two before I left, I checked my water filter and used it to make sure that it was working properly. And I think that leaving it in the Ziploc bag, which is where I put the filter usually, so that water doesn't drip all over and keeps it protected, allowed some mold or mildew or something to grow on the filter itself during that week or two. And it affected the quality and the taste of the water when I used it to filter. So that's my mistake. It's not the Katadyn filter's fault. It's my fault. So I am ordering a new filter. I'm just going to replace it. It's 2 years. I'll just bite the bullet and buy that, and I'll be good with that. But I would say if you have a problem with that, either buy. I know there's a company, they use iodine for cleaning. Then they sell, I think it's something called Sweet Drops that you can add that negates or mitigates that flavor or that taste from the iodine. I would probably buy that. Or you can try filtering it, or just drink it and just embrace the suck. There's wearing Darwin's shirt. The only other thing, one thing that surprised me, insects were not really that much of a problem, and there were a lot of them. Cicadas were out. Mosquitoes weren't that bad until like my maybe 6th, 7th night, something like that. Like 1 or 2 nights, some mosquitoes came out. I used these Natrapel wipes. They're all natural tick mosquito repellent, and it's like a wipe. You just wipe it on yourself, on your skin, and whatever, and it's supposed to work. I found it to be pretty effective. I didn't have a problem with it. I brought several of them. I only ended up using it twice, and I would definitely carry it again, so it worked. But I was really surprised the mosquitoes were not a problem. I mean, I was by the river, and I'm thinking mosquitoes are going to be real bad because there's water everywhere, but they really weren't. Spare glasses, I never needed them, fortunately, but if I broke my glasses or lost my glasses, I would be very glad I had it. So that's basically it for that equipment. I brought my MP3 player. I'm glad I took that. I listened to podcasts or music almost all the day when I was hiking. Sometimes I would shut it off, but I would generally carry it with me. This little bag I used to go through airport security and stuff, and then I used it like a pillow. Didn't really find that to be very comfortable. My neck is hurting me from probably sleeping on a pillow. I would have preferred my regular pillow or just do without. And in the end, I stopped using this, and I ended up using something else for a pillow, which worked out to be a lot better, like my fleece, which was softer and a little bit more compressed, didn't have such a high angle. Garmin InReach, what can I say? I love this thing, carry it every trip I go. Several times I did not have communication at all on this trail, no comms, no signal. This thing works every time. I'm able to communicate with my family, let them know where I'm at, check in with them, check out with them for the day. Even twice I used it to get weather reports, because it does have a feature that you can get weather reports as a message. So at least I had some idea what the weather was going to be, whether it was going to rain or not. And it was pretty accurate. So I would recommend using this again. They do make a smaller one, the Mini now. They even make GPSs with this built in. I would probably go that route. They make one with a GPS, camera, everything all in one. You might even want to go that route. It all depends on how much money you want to pay. I like it on my shoulder. I don't use it as much now that I have my watch, because this tracks me where I'm going as well. And I can look right away and see my speed. Before that, I was using it quite often, and the battery would go down a lot faster. I notice I can generally go 3 to 5 days with this with one battery. I shut it off at night, though. After I send my last message out, I turn it back on in the morning. It starts tracking and reporting where I'm at. If you leave it on all the time, obviously your battery usage is going to go up. You're not going to get 5 days with it. But if you're diligent with shutting it off, you will definitely be able to use this multiple days and not have to charge it. This is my bag of cables. I probably could have gone a little lighter and left out 1 or 2 cables, but I have so many cables that I have a bunch of options. So no matter what the situation is, I was able to power or plug something in. So not that much weight. I felt I did a good job on that. No problem. Some little meds I took. There's the other battery pack. Here's my MP3 player I brought. My digital player worked great. I would have loaded more stuff in. I pretty much listened to almost everything I had on here. I realized I had a lot of duplicates, some podcasts I already listened to because I loaded it up a couple weeks ago. But it worked out good for me. I would use it to go to sleep at night. I would use it to keep myself busy in the tent at night. And sometimes, every time I was walking, I would generally use it with my headphones. I did bring a mask, my little hiking mask. Thank you, Mrs. Drew, as usual. She's very supportive. And this was my mask. If I went into town or I went into a business, I always started out wearing a mask to be courteous and respectful, because I didn't know. Most of the places, there was no mask required. But a couple of places ask you to wear it, but don't require it. And some places, said that you can't come in without one, but I observed people blatantly going in there, no attempt to comply with that. And I have 2 of these, I think, in my pack to clean glasses, lenses, screens. Comes in handy. Everything's damp and dirty out there. You don't want to be rubbing it on your shirt. Your shirt's full of salt and sweat. It would scratch it. It wouldn't get it clean. If it's really foggy, it's not going to get it clean. So I generally would bring these, and these clean all the screens I have. So it's my phone, my camera, my watch even, and the Garmin screen. So very useful to have. I think that's all the equipment. My buff, I love that thing. It's probably time to get a new one soon. It's getting a little thin in a couple of places. But it also serves as a quick, if I forget my mask or I don't have it, I could put it up. I never really needed it while walking. It's not really, it was cold, but it did keep my neck from getting burnt or bugs from settling on my neck while hiking. And the hat was extremely useful, especially in the morning. I would notice that every time I'd go through spider webs, somehow I would see the spiders usually on the brim, dropping down or dangling, and I would be able to take them and throw them off. But obviously it's very important to have a hat. Don't want to get burned. and I also don't want to get a sunburn. So that helps protect me and the top of my head and the side of my head from the rain when it rained and the sun when it's sunny. So that's it. I don't think I've forgotten anything else. So last, the question that a lot of people are probably wondering, or if not, you'll be glad I tell you. When I came back, I weighed my pack. When I got off the plane and I came home, I weighed my gear. Everything except for the clothes I was wearing, along with my phone, which was in my pocket, and I don't generally have in my pack, but adding in the GPS, which was on the pack, everything. The pack itself, in the bag, when it went onto the airplane, weighed 19.5 pounds. So I was basically probably 12 pounds lighter when I came home than when I hit the trail. So figure most of that is fuel, water, and food. My fuel, I donated to a gentleman at the hotel and asked him to pass along to a hiker or a biker that could use it. I should have bought even a smaller one. I should have bought the 6-ounce one, a 4-ounce one, because I only used it 6 times. So to make 6 or 7 meals. So I didn't really need as big a cartridge, but I was worried about running out if it took me 10 or 11 days. Better have more than less. So that canister was probably more than half full, and that went to someone else. So they're cheap enough to buy. It's not a big deal. So that's it. If you have any questions about my gear, if I left anything out or I overlooked anything, I apologize. I just went through my gear out here. I'm airing it out. I'm eventually going to go through it and clean it up like I usually do. So thank you so much for joining me. Hope you got something out of it. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch it. Please leave a comment, a question, an opinion, good or negative, down below. And as always, thank you for joining me. Till we meet again.